Okay, I want to welcome everyone to the March 14th, 2025 meeting of the New Jersey Antique Radio Club here at InfoAge. Any new faces in the crowd? I think everybody is accounted for. Yes, right? Okay. Nice to see a few faces we haven't seen in a while. Mr. Kelly, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. And Davey, too. Yeah, we don't see you that often. It's great. That's great. Okay. All right.
It's because I'm here.
That's, well, shh. And I see Bill. Oh, thank you, Bill. Thanks. Thanks. Okay, anyway. Infirmary report. All right. Unfortunately, it's a long list, and I'm real not happy about that, but that's the way life goes here. We're going to start off with Bruce Ingram. What do you know about him right now, Al? I'm sorry, Ray.
You're looking for Bruce?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Bruce is about the same. He still does dizzy spells. He had a minor stroke, and I guess he's had that before, but he's up and about. He drives local, but he can't take the chance of driving up the Parkway, so we may not see him for a while. But that's about all I know.
All right, thank you. Now, if you don't know, you should know that Bruce Ingram has been taking care of our tube vault and been testing tubes that have been donated to the club and InfoAge, and doing an incredible job, really an incredible job. So he's missed right now, and we sure as hell hope he does recover, because we desperately need him for what work he's done for us. Okay, all right. Number 2, Al Clays isn't here this evening. He wants to be. He helped set up for us. And what happened is Peggy, his wife, has some health issues and some ongoing heart issues. So we can only wish him and her well. Okay, she was in hospital, and supposedly today she did get out of hospital, and he would have been here otherwise, but he had to take her home, so.
I just talked to him about an hour ago.
Okay, what?
He's been released, and it looks like it might be okay.
Looks good? It's looking good. All right. It's been going on for a while, but we appreciate that. Thank you, Jules. Thanks a lot. All right, number 3. All right. Our former Vice President, Emeritus, Sal Brazindi. All right. As was mentioned at our meeting last month, he did, of all the things he has, he had a stroke, all right? And obviously, strokes are, you never know with a stroke, how much it can affect you. Some people, we have strokes and we don't even know we have strokes. But it has affected him. And to the point where we were trying to get in touch with him. Long story short, I asked John Riccolo to stop by because I couldn't get in touch. So John very kindly made the trip up to the house. And John, you want to take it from there?
You want me to stand up?
Come on up, yeah.
So I went Wednesday after, I do volunteer work at Freehold on Wednesday to Thursday. So after my Wednesday, I work on those 2. Not far from there, Sal lives in Freehold.
John, come on up. I can't even hear you.
I thought my voice carried. It's the acoustics in this room. I had a nice long chat with Lisa, his wife, and she's in good spirits, and she suggested, well, look, my daughter's visiting him now. Why don't we call her number and you can show her.
And this was
This was
Wednesday
evening. So we did that, and I talked to Sal for about a minute. He sounded okay for somebody who's had a stroke. I'll spare you a lot of the gory details, but there are some long-term care issues that the family is working through, because this is apparently a fairly debilitating stroke. So, we'll see. But, Lisa's doing reasonably well. I texted her a little while ago, about half an hour ago, just seeing how things were. I haven't heard back from her. But, her daughter was at the, I like to end things on a humorous note. Her daughter texts her, "Don't give John anything." And Lisa goes, "She's looking out for her dad," and so we had a laugh over that one. So that's it. So I'll stay in touch with her, and I'll try to keep you up. I think she really needed somebody to talk to. I think she was happy that I stopped by. So that's about it.
All right, thanks, John, thanks. And one of the gory details is that John went down to the shop, Sal's shop, and he said it looked like, bomb hit it, and that it's all part of the stroke and having issues. And John found some of the equipment plugged in and on, so that's never any good. So obviously John turned it off. So.
And took it home.
Please sit down where we unplugged a few things.
Yeah, I'm sure nothing like that occurred. Nothing. All right. Should I know of anybody else that's within our infirmary report? Good. If there is someone, please let me know via email or text or phone call. We need to know each other. None of us are getting any younger, okay, except our guest speaker. He's the only one. All right, on to old business. All right, on February 22nd, we had our winter repair clinic here at 9032A. We were light in experts, but everyone contributed, and we had a successful day. Our newest expert, a man named Aaron Hunter. Aaron Hunter. Where are you, Aaron Hunter? Where are you, Aaron Hunter? Where are you? He's hiding. Where are you, Aaron?
He left.
Oh, there he is behind there. Raise your hand, Mr. Hunter. All right. We want to thank you very much for volunteering as an expert. We really do appreciate that, okay? And Aaron got to work on one of his favorite brand of radios to work on, a Philco 116, 1938, owned by club member Richard Hoynes, and it left here working.
Nice job.
Right? Listen to me, I wasn't going to give you all the credit, believe me. But like I said, we all worked together and helped each other out, and Neville was one of the kingpins of that, yes, as usual. Thank you, Neville.
What did you do? Hook up a Bluetooth adapter?
All right. Any other comments about our repair clinic? Anybody? Nothing? Nobody? All right. Well, the bagels were good. The pizza was good. All right. Good. I'm glad. All right. Good. All right. Well, unfortunately, Darren's not here. He said he's going to try and make it. But on that same day, February 22nd, JD Auction Services had their auction in the White Room at Renninger's in K-Town. Dave, do you know about it?
Yes.
Were you part of it?
Yes.
All right. Can you tell us about it?
It was a good auction. There were about 270 lots that passed through, and some good prices. And I think everyone was happy. Lots of tubes went.
Yeah.
So it was amazing. It's amazing how much stuff they got in there.
Yeah, that's what I heard also.
And they moved along. It was about 2.5 hours. So it was a nice.
All right. And I know Bobby Bennett was there. I know Bobby and Sharon were there, helping out, yeah. And I believe some of the lots were still Radio Willie,
Yes.
William Demetrios. Yeah, okay. We will miss him at the swap meet this Saturday, yeah. Okay, is there any other old business before I move on to new business? Harry, Harry, are you here? Where are you, Harry?
Well, I can announce that we have a new docent,
Okay,
and her name is Carolyn Wickham. And she is somebody, well, she seems very good. And she is somebody related to someone we know.
and who might that be?
Her middle name is Picciani.
Picciani, yes.
And, no, not quite. About 10 years ago, he gave us a tremendous amount of stuff and also support. And so it's in the family.
Ah, yes. Yes, I remember it well. There's more to that story, but I don't need to get into it right now. Okay, but she's in the neighborhood?
She is in Oldbridge.
Okay.
Her drive, I drive past kind of the area where she lives, is about 5 miles shorter than mine, so.
All right, well, very good. What is her days or
Weekends.
weekends?
She works during the week.
Oh, she's one of those people, yeah.
Well, I think, no, she's a retired teacher, but she works.
She's really good.
Good,
Awesome.
great,
Very impressive.
very good. We need that.
We're gonna steal her.
All right, on to new business. Otherwise, docents, we're doing okay, or?
We're doing okay in that. This weekend, we're having a little issue with.
Well, you get the Makers Faire.
Right. The Makers Faire, as apparently you mentioned, Peggy, Al's wife, is having some medical problems, so he's not going to be here tomorrow. He's kind of the driver behind this thing.
Yeah.
So we're trying to keep it together. We could use another person on Sunday. We got two, but it's going to take three. John is considering it.
No, I'm here Sunday.
No, I know, but you're here at the museum, so.
Oh, like I said, I'll do whatever
Okay.
you want.
But if it would be very useful if somebody, would step up. There are 2 other people doing it, so you get help
All right.
and that sort of thing. And there's some written material.
Yeah, I say it all the time, and it bears repeating. If you're living within 25 miles of InfoAge as a New Jersey Antique Radio Club member, you really need to step up and volunteer some hours. A day would be great, but some hours even would be helpful. Really, there's a lot of you out there who are within 25 miles from here too. All right, on to new business. All right, so the newest business is what we have will be taking place a week from tomorrow, and that will be our spring Hamfest Swap Meet show at Parsippany PAL, okay? We are almost sold out in tables, vending tables. The good part is there are 4 vendors I've never heard from before in my life, so that's always good to have new blood coming in with new stuff. So look forward to that. I got a call today. I wasn't even home. I got it on my phone now. So we're filling up, but we'll believe me, even when we're sold out, I can figure out more tables too. I'll figure it out. If there's, we need more guys, there'll be more tables available. Okay. So if you need to vend, if you'd like to vend, remember the email I sent out to the communicator was actually to your wives and significant others, because I'm sure they can figure out something for you to sell. Okay. Yes.
Thanks.
Yes, that's true. Yes, yes, true. Yeah. All righty. Okay. All right. I'm sure you have read the broadcast of this month that David put out. What was it? Yesterday? Day before? Day before. Okay. I wrote an article on my visit to the Aviation Hall of Fame and Museum of New Jersey at Teterboro Airport. Okay. Now, for you flatlanders, that's a bit of a trip, I know, up to Route 46, okay, but it's really well worth it. I gave their museum curator, Ralph Villeka, yeah, very nice fellow, very personable guy, and I gave him our brochures. I've been there a couple of times now. I gave him our brochures, and I gave him InfoAge brochures. and he reciprocated with some of his brochures. So it's really worth it, really worth it. And it's everything New Jersey aviation at Teterboro. And you get to see all those fancy jets going by, you know. And we have John Ruccolo, I'm sorry, not John Ruccolo, he never flew. But we have John Butts-Facina, and he flew, all right? And he's flown out of Teterboro. When he was flying out of Teterboro, I said, John, geez, you know, I'm like 20 minutes from there, man. Can you stick me in one of those private jets doing, you know, I'll take a ride with you. Down to Texas, he was taking ball players and all sorts of mucky-muck people down, you know. I said, look, you know, I'll wear a tight skirt and give out drinks, whatever it takes, man, to get a free ride like that, you know. And he said, no, Rich, no, they're really difficult now. You can't just do that anymore. So anyway, maybe he'll start flying out of there again someday, and I'll get a chance. But anyway, it's really worth the trip going up there. It's an amazing place. The amount of pictures I put on, there's many more there. Yes?
That Eastern Airlines flight simulator you put a picture of?
Yes.
I restored it for them.
Nice.
You restored it? Scott,
Yeah,
how did you do that?
with great difficulty.
You're a man of many talents.
No, I didn't make it work again. I restored it to museum condition. It was all junky, so I fixed it up.
I mean, it's status. Is it status? Is it a static? Is it static now, or it does?
No, it doesn't run.
Oh.
They couldn't afford me to make it run. I just had to make it look like it couldn't be museum condition.
Oh, all right. How did they get in touch with you?
Great one.
Okay, all right. I know you. Yeah, you're amazing, amazing guy. I'll tell you.
It's a cool machine. It has 150 vacuum tubes in it, literally.
All right, great. Any 12AX7s? Any 12AX7s? None left. All right. All right. Great information. Appreciate that. All right. I want to talk a little bit. David.
So this is important because we have a flight simulator that needs fixing. 325, is that right? Yeah.
That's an instrument from the...
Yeah. All right, I want to talk a little bit about something that's been in the news this past week, and that's the death of Gene Hackman, okay, and his wife, under peculiar circumstances. Eventually, they're going to figure it all out. But one of the things that they've mentioned that just piqued up my interest was hantavirus. Okay, hantavirus. Do we all know about hantavirus, guys? Oh, we should all know about hantavirus.
Tell us about it.
Would you like to know something about it, Hunter? All right. All right. If you were in the Korean War, you'd know everything about it. Because it's named after a river in Korea, okay? And it's a virus, a malady, where if you're in the trenches and you're living with vermin and mice and rats and squirrels, okay, they carry hantavirus. And many of the GIs of that era, on both sides of the conflict, were coming down with this hantavirus. It can be a killer, and it cannot be a killer. But what happens is it's the white-footed deer mice that carry it in particular. And when you look up white-footed deer mice, guess what? They're all of the mice that are around us, okay? It's kind of funny in a way, because they said that the scroungy, disgusting urban mice, the black mice, they don't carry it. It's the ones that we deal with all the time. So where am I going with this? I'm going that we've got to be extra careful, okay? That supposedly, why, I don't know, maybe we'll find out why, his wife died of hantavirus, okay? So it's not that unusual. Now, you can just get sick and you don't even know you have it, all right? But she succumbed to it. So apparently they were living in squalor in this mansion that they owned. And, you know, it's when it gets aerated, you know, when it goes into the dust and it goes into the sky, into your lungs, That's where you get it, okay? Now, yes?
So I read about it every once in a while, so it's mostly out west.
Yes.
People camping
Yes.
in the mountains.
Lenny.
Yeah, I heard that we had a TV doctor on saying, oh, it's localized to the southwest. And I know somebody personally, that her husband was cleaning out a barn around Robbinsville, Trenton. I guess they do come out here.
Yeah, so my whole premise in talking about this is not to tell you this horrible story, but other than that, we are all involved in mouse houses, one way or another. We've all spent our lives in our hobby, our vocation, cleaning out chassis with mice piss and poop and urine all over it, and you know, we breathe it. So just be aware of it and realize that we have to take the stuff outside, let it spend a few days outside in the backyard, in the back porch, okay? Then when you take it out, take it apart, you know, you clean it out, blow it out, brush it out better, and wear a K95 mask, all right? I mean, that's all I can really say about it. But it just hit a chord with me that this happened to her, and it can happen to her, and it happened to us. And maybe it has happened to us, and we thought, oh, we had the flu, or we had this or that, but it could have been hantavirus, okay?
Dr. Google says 40% lethality.
Pretty big.
40%?
40%.
There's two types, all right? I don't want to get into it, but there's the less lethal and the more lethal, all right? But just be aware of it. It's out there, okay? And those cute little mice ain't so cute. Yeah. Okay, any comments? Anybody else has ever suffered it that they know of? No? Okay, moving on. Enough of that. All right, Ham Shack Corner. 2 weeks ago, I and a few of the NJARC contingents from Long Island, we have 6 of them, members, we went to the Limark Ham Fest, which is basically a winter ham fest. They carry on every year at Levittown Hall in Levittown, Long Island. It turned out to be a great ham fest. People usually, oh, it's a winter time, it's a little ham fest, what's the big deal? Well, it turned out that it was great for boat anchors. We picked up a whole bunch of boat anchors, a bunch of us. And we need help picking up boat anchors nowadays, right? Member Jerry and Gordo, which we all know, picked up a nice condition HQ 120. He had never had one, and he has an incredible collection of boat anchors. But now he's got one, thanks to me. I sort of, Jerry, yes, I know, I pushed it on you, I'm sorry. And then by proxy, club member Carl Grainer, he picked up a very nice Hallicrafters SX62, gorgeous, fantastic shape. And John Cummer was there, and he picked up a Hallicrafters speaker, an R48. And I happened to pick up a very nice, small Hamelin speaker for my 110 Hamelin that I just acquired, thanks to John. John, are you there? Yeah, John Riccolo. Thank you, John. It's working very well. With the speaker, too. Thank you. So, just like what we have coming next Saturday, come on down. You just never know what you're going to find, okay? There's going to be something for everyone. So if you don't want to be a vendor, you can't be a vendor, the wife hasn't talked to you about vending, come on out and be a buyer. And, you know, you can slip the stuff into the garage without her knowing, okay? I know how you know how to do that, okay? All right. That's enough. Okay. We're going to have a short intermission because we have an honorable guest presenter this evening, all right? John, not Cervini, John Cervini. Thank you very much, right? So please, let's go have a coffee, get something to drink. If there's any of my homemade brownies left, you're welcome to them. And then we will have the presentation. Okay, short presentation. I'm sorry, short intermission, long presentation.
Can we have brownies and drive?
What?
Can we have brownies and still drive?
Yes. by the way, I forgot, we need volunteers for the 50-50. Volunteers for the 50-50. Did I say volunteers for the 50-50? Do I hear any volunteers for the 50-50? I need 2 volunteers for the 50-50. 2 volunteers. I have 1. Donald is here. And I have Rick. Rick, thank God Rick is here. 3 for 2. 3 tickets for $2. 3 tickets for $2. Rick, Don, Rick.
Abandon the concept.
Oh, I almost forgot.
50-50, come on, who wants to be first? Come on, baby, who's going first?
You too with the hantavirus, look out.
I nodded. As soon as you mentioned underwriters, I was going.
Yeah, there's people that don't know. They don't know.
I look at chassis and I see all those mouse nests on it.
Yeah. And we, I don't know, it's been a joke over the years. People show you, they'll send us each other's pictures of like a chassis. It looks great, like maybe that radio, it looks great. You take it out of the chassis and it's just chock full of leaves and threads out of carpeting and everything.
I know where that's going.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Take it outside.
Yeah, outside.
Yeah. I got one from, who was the member that died and we went up to his house, or down to his house in Somerville area? Or down south in 3rd?
Yeah. That was the grab and go?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in the garage and in the basement. Yeah.
And it was out in the outbuilding. I got one of the chassis out there.
Yeah.
It was a homebrew. And I haven't gotten to it yet, but I just... All right, that's just going to go off to the side there, I got enough projects. And doing crap like this through the hallway,
Yeah.
I took care of that, but I'm not volunteering for doing that stuff tomorrow. They got volunteers for
Good.
It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Reason I want to your first meeting, so next time, you gotta come early, boy.
Part of the Hamfest Corner, I forgot to ask about Dayton. Is anybody going to Dayton? You're going? Talk to the man behind you. Talk to the man behind you. All right, hold on, guys. Sit down. Find a seat. Sit down. All right, I feel like a third grade teacher here. Sit down. Find a seat. Doesn't even have to be the same one you came in with. Find a seat. All right. Again, we want to thank Rick Mueller for his generous donation to the club, which I will give to our treasurer, if he's here. There he is. Okay. I'll give it to you too. All right. All right. Listen, I have here a bio, all right, of John T. Cervini. Now all right, the hell with it, I won't read it. To be honest with you, I didn't intend reading all that. All right? All right, so we're going to turn the lights off, okay? Behave yourselves. All right. So, John Cervini, tell everybody who you really are, John. Thanks for coming. Have a little applause, maybe? Yeah.
Thank you. What does this do for me? I can walk around with it?
We're on YouTube live.
Okay. I should have known.
You're not copyrighted or anything.
No, I just don't like. I don't like this.
You don't like that?
This one, no.
I got it off your website.
I know. I don't like it. Leave it. That's all right.
What, do you want to go through the notes?
No.
Remind you what you did in your life?
Thanks. I'm John Cervini. I spent 30 years working at Fort Monmouth at something called the Electronic Warfare Laboratory. It had 10 different names, but it was the same organization. And the building we were in had no windows, and that was up at by the Hexagon off exit 105 there. However, but before that, it was called the Electronic Countermeasures Division, and it was down here in this building, and this was the laboratory for EW, right here. They had all those nice electronic benches, work benches and things here. And once upon a time, somebody told me a story. There's a pole right out here. Everybody was working, soldering, doing nice things, fine-tuning, when a bolt of lightning hit, and you know what it must sound like when it's that close, and things went flying all over. But that was before my time. So I was working at the R&D division there at EW Lab with no windows. And I was working in things like signals intelligence, okay? Airborne signal intelligence, initially signal processing. And we had these great contracts with the RCA Corporation, Camden, New Jersey, prior to firing John, if you know who that is, and the GE merger. We had some great work, and we built this special purpose processor, which one of these days we have it around somewhere for display. And it was able to process at its time a tremendous amount of capability. Of course, it could handle what we called back then wideband signals, and they're still wideband because we were doing mainly ELINT, electronic intelligence, which is non-communications, and it had instantaneous bandwidth of 500 megahertz, which was pretty good. And then we did things in millimeter wave. I spent a lot of time doing that, and then ultimately became a branch chief there And then my special job, when we moved over to Building 600 on post, I was a SPO, Special Projects Officer. And that was an excellent job because now I was no longer a manager, I was a troubleshooter. And that's great, you don't have to write up all these reports on people. And there were some people who had problems, so I'm glad I wasn't a manager anymore. And so the last things I was doing was working on UAV payloads, okay, and also special purpose, they weren't contracts, they were evaluations for getting contracts. And so I spent 6 months in Huntsville on TDY, as we called it then. We were procuring what became the tactical UAV, the Shadow 200, of which there's, when we expand into the building 9010C, we have a model of the Shadow 200 UAV. And by the way, UAVs were developed here at Camp Evans before anywhere else. And in fact, the first truly autonomous flight of a UAV was done by ST5, which was an engineering development model. It was a delta wing, and it flew from, it flew from Arizona to New Mexico. And the FAA required an Air Force chase plane because nothing had flown autonomously before. And it flew, it had a camera on board, popped a parachute and floated down and was very, very successful. And they had a model at the Fort Monmouth Museum, and it was, the program never went into production, and that ended that. It was 1959, okay? 1959. The last program here at Camp Evans was a special sensor under a DoD contract through the Navy, because they had the lead on unmanned aerial vehicles then. And it was for what became the Predator UAV, okay, which was a real breakthrough in technology. And this started out at 175 pounds, 1 foot resolution, KU band radar, and could penetrate clouds, and was used in Kosovo when the Serbians were violating the Dayton treaties because the weather was so crappy they didn't keep their tanks in the compounds. They rolled them out. And the Predator with the synthetic aperture radar sensor, which we have a copy of in our EW room, found them out and was used at the to charge the Serbians with violating the Dayton Accords. That was the last program here. Let's see. All right, I'll leave it at that. What happened was then when the Army decided to shut down Camp Evans in order to preserve Fort Monmouth, it was going to be turned over to Wall Township, and there was something called the Restoration Advisory Board from Wall Township, which worked with the Army, and I was on that. And they had a historic district out of the 300 acres, 36 acres, and InfoAge became the nonprofit manager for Wall Township of the historic district. And that's how we got here. We solicited things. The New Jersey Antique Radio Club stepped up and put together probably the best museum here of all the organizations we have, and we're very proud of that. Okay, one of the things we did was have lectures, a series of lectures that for the public. So I knew that we had a tremendous number of people in Lakewood who came to visit because they had to learn as part of their religion. And I said, well, they should be interested in Iron Dome, okay? And so we advertised in their newspaper, and some people came to the first iteration of this lecture. This is, what did I say it was, Jim? The fourth iteration, and I'm preparing the fifth as we speak. And now, after the fourth iteration, we get a tremendous turnout from there, and now from the general public, and everybody knows what Iron Dome is. And the president and this administration has proposed an Iron Dome for the United States, only now they're calling it, I don't know if you know this, Golden Dome. Honest to truth, that's honest. So the first iteration was in August 2021, right after the May attack from the Gaza Strip. Let's see if I can get this going.
Maybe we can do the lights in the first thing.
Well, they were supposed to be done.
We wanted to see it now.
Oh, okay. So these, I have just a brief outline here. I won't spend too much historical background, one slide. And Ray Chase is here, and he'll know what I'm talking about, and maybe a few other people. And I'll go through these, explain in a little more detail what Iron Dome is, for those of you who haven't Googled it and spent a lot of time with it. Its deployment, and all these threats that have cropped up, and this is where it's changed, and I've had to modify it, because in August of 2021, there was the first event, and it's changed a lot since then. I'll talk about what some people consider weaknesses, and again, it's people who don't understand how the air defense systems work, and the fact that all countries have integrated air defenses, and maybe the presidential organization that came up with Golden Dome will realize that Iron Dome is not good enough to protect the United States, because it's much bigger than the state of Israel. Okay, and then we'll talk about alternative systems. We've been having a problem here, let's see, okay. Okay, SCR 584, World War II. This is what, and I'm preparing a detailed presentation ultimately on this. I'm going to solicit the help of Ray Chase and Fred Carl. The SCR 584 was one of the first microwave radars. If anybody knows about the TIZARD mission and the MIT, the radiation lab and everything else, and things were done so quickly. So now you're working all of a sudden at microwave frequencies, and the whole idea behind the system was the fact that it was truly a self-sustained system for the first time. Isn't that always the way? Let me see, Matthew. No, I got to go back. Okay. So my pointer doesn't work. All right, never mind. So what made it that way? Which one is that? Laser. Okay, thank you. I can't see in the dark, but okay. What happened for the first time, then this is just going to be quickly, you had the radar, okay, which contained in here, and you had a special purpose processor, which was called a gun director, then happened to be called the M9 gun director, built by Bell Labs, okay, which then was tied to the artillery batteries, okay. These were 90 millimeter air defense guns of the United States. It was also set up to work with the British anti-aircraft artillery. Okay, the key was things were automated so that you can fire, and the target then was the V1, which was a rocket, just like Iron Dome was developed to down rockets. And the artillery also had proximity fuse. So for the first time, you didn't have to have a direct hit. And that's what I showed you. So this was truly the first integrated system, and all air defense systems today use the same general principles, but with more advanced technology. Okay, and you have to remember this presentation was for the general public audience who may not understand some technology, so I explain what without going into too much detail, what a proximity fuse does. Okay, Iron Dome, air defense system. Okay, and I have modified this statement because the first time it was in there and I pulled it off the internet, it said system used to intercept and destroy short-range rockets, and munitions, and mortars. And then what you learn later on is you're not going to fire a $100,000 missile to shoot down a mortar shell, okay? And it turns out you're not going to use it to shoot down a $1,000 drone, which we'll get into. Okay, so that was a change. The range is out to 45 miles. Again, that does no good if you have something in the United States. You have to have, as you'll see, a layered system. Okay, and it was evaluated by the U.S. Army at Fort Bliss. 2 units were brought, 2 firing units. And without going into detail, because that's going to be in the 5th iteration, it doesn't fit the European or the U.S. air defense the way it's set up. Israel is kind of a unique situation, again, because everything is so compact. Okay, why was it built? And we have to go back to 2006. And you'll see why I had to modify this also, because Hezbollah, Lebanon, is where things first started. Come on. There we go. Okay, what you had was, this is the southern border of Lebanon, and this is Israel, and they started firing rockets into Israel. Israel wasn't prepared, had nothing to deal with them, and there were a lot of injuries, deaths, and a lot of evacuations. And there's a land bridge to, through Syria, right to Iran, that allows the Hezbollah to get Russian rockets. And that was a real problem. So a lot of rockets were fired, and this video is from 2021, actually, I mean this image, okay? And they vowed that they were going, with the United States' help, they were going to develop a shield, as they call it, or air defense system. Okay, so I just want to tell you the threat that was developed in Gaza, and again, I'm going back to 2021 too. What they did was a lot of homemade stuff, which was very inaccurate, okay, and they got documentation and bits and pieces from Iran, and it's like a bunch of guys like you get some stuff, you got instructions, you can put things together. Okay, it's primitive though, okay? Come on. Okay, and in the tunnels and everything else, and this is an example of some of the primitive stuff. These are just tubes that are made almost like fireworks tubes where they could launch primitive stuff like mortars, and they didn't care where they went. Okay, and as you see later on, we talk to the public and say the difference between a rocket and a missile, okay, is considerable. Come on. Come on. Okay. So once upon a time, even back then, in 2021, Israeli intelligence said there were at least 30,000 rockets and projectiles around the Gaza Strip and in Lebanon with Hezbollah. They modified that to 100,000 6 months later. Okay. Okay, and again, here's what you were getting. You were getting some of these rockets that were originally part of Russian equipment or North Korean stuff, and they were, come on, they were using simple design and instructions. This is killing me here. I'm going to stand over here, okay? I'm going to stand over here. I think I have enough here. Pardon me. Okay, so you got that stuff. And later on, what they're talking about is, back then in 2021, projections of bigger and bigger missiles, okay? And even though they talked about some of these things which you don't see, there was a projection of some of these going 155 miles. Back then, that was kind of iffy, not verified. But what it did is, you'll see, it put all of Israel under the threat of attack. Okay, so Iron Dome, what does it consist of? The key, again, is the radar, okay? Radar is key. Get out of people's way. Okay, just like, put my hand, just like the SCR 584. Okay, you have to have some sort of processor, just like the gun director in World War II. Okay, except with this SCR 584, you track one target and engage one target. The Iron Dome can process up to 200 targets a minute. Okay, and then you had the launchers, okay, which were connected, and the processor, the control and processor decided priorities, and as you'll see in a few minutes, it could change priorities and make the missiles change direction. So for purposes of the public, you say, okay, how does this work? Enemy launches a rocket. Okay, the radar is tracking the rocket. Okay, and the processor determines the priorities and decides which of the launchers should be engaged. It launches a missile. So now the radar is tracking the Iron Dome missile and the threat missile till the end game, when the sensors on board the Iron Dome missile take over and the proximity fuse goes off and destroys the target. All right, so here's the thing. Remember, they talked about the Gaza Strip on May of 2021. Over a 2-day period, there were 4,000 rockets fired. So what did Israel have as an answer with Iron Dome? And it gets into the numbers game. So at the time, they said there were 10 batteries, but 15 planned. So I used, in the calculation, 15, okay, manufactured by Rafael and IAI, with a lot of help from Raytheon Corporation, Massachusetts, okay? So each of the I should have had the top one, say 10 systems, and 3 to 4 launchers, okay, in each one. And each launcher, as you'll see, carries 20 missiles, okay? And the proximity fuse started in 2011. So if you do 15 times 4 times 20, you get 1,200 at any one time, okay, before an attack occurs. But again, when people were talking about the 4,000 missiles, they weren't launched all at once. So you have a reloading process that works. Okay. Now, I've described a certain thing, so let's see a 4-minute video, ideally, which will explain it, that I like to show to the public.
Travel to Ashkelon, a coastal city just south of Tel Aviv. you are seeing here right now is the launcher. Each launcher has 20 missiles on it. You can see the red light flashing, which means it's armed and ready.
Here, one of the dozen or so Iron Dome batteries sits at the ready to intercept missiles and provide Israel with a type of shield from aerial attacks.
I'm the Iron Dome commander.
Lieutenant Colonel Ron Cohen oversees its operation.
Is this as close as we get, or do we get? This is as close as we get.
It took just 3 years and about $200 million to develop this defense system. It relies on a radar that instantly detects when a missile has been fired. Algorithms quickly try to determine what type of projectile is in the air and whether it's heading for a populated or strategic area. If so, Iron Dome launches a missile of its own. It's said that Iron Dome has taken down more than 1,000 missiles since it turned on in 2011, with a 90% success rate. Some people question the accuracy of these figures. What's clear, though, is that the algorithms capable of directing projectiles while performing a cost-benefit analysis on human life are among the most advanced in the world. This network of launchers is highly mobile and constantly on the move. This site, like many, is temporary.
Everything you see here can be moved out in a matter of hours. And we move around a lot to make sure nobody knows where we are all the time.
Unless you live here, it's difficult to imagine just how much this technology has transformed the lives of ordinary Israelis.
I can tell you from my own personal experience, sitting in my own house and seeing rockets fly towards my house and operating this incredible system and succeeding. With the Iron Dome, when you see your house that you're protecting and your family and your friends and your soldiers, it's a sense of great sense of pride.
For many Palestinians, Iron Dome means something else. It's just the most visible part of an expansive Israeli security apparatus that includes drones, checkpoints, and espionage technology. Those tools have been put to immediate use in the West Bank, Gaza, and throughout Israel. Terrorist bombings have declined, missiles have met their match. But lower tech forms of protest, like stabbings, are now on the rise.
Okay. So, the rockets were launched at multiple times. Okay, and the thing is, the processor is so good, it can determine what is really a threat, because a lot of those rockets didn't even get across, get out of the strip area. So, and again, because a rocket is unguided, you have azimuth and elevation, okay? And if you talk to Army artillery, anybody who's been in artillery, you have wind information and everything else, and humidity and all of that, and you have firing tables. They didn't have any of those. They just fired across the border, the fence line, and knowing it would go into Israel and maybe hit something. Now, what we're going to get into in a little bit is missiles, okay, which are guided, which are much more of a threat, much more accurate, and usually longer range. Now, this is a great picture of what I like. It shows you that even after launching an Iron Dome missile, and this goes for other defense systems too, that's why it's nice working with this. The processor can order a rocket to change direction if somehow the priority changes. And you see that here with a lot of a number of the Iron Dome missiles changing direction to attack a later launch of enemy rockets that are more dangerous. I think that's pretty cool and pretty capable. Okay, so now what happens is all of a sudden there's more sophisticated rockets around, and especially with the Hezbollah, we're going to get into that. And you look at the ranges of these things. Now, a lot of them were speculative, but I wanted to point out the Grad missile because individually, they were launched individually by some by Hamas and then some by Hezbollah. But I want to show you how the Grad is actually used in the Ukraine. Okay. Again, if I can find my... That was 75 to 100 rounds in 12 minutes. Unfortunately, that but that deal with with a threat like the Russians have. Okay, remember I mentioned that there were 1,200 missiles. Okay, and the highest priority is selected, but the rest will land in Israel territory. What was happening a lot of times, even some that were shot down, they were partially destroyed, and they were on fire, okay, and came down and landed on buildings and houses, and that was a real threat. There was a lot of injuries and a few deaths. So a lot of people complained and said, "Wow, you hit only some of them. You didn't hit all of them," and they considered that a weakness, but. So that drove a need to supplement, Iron Dome with other air defense, which is exactly what Israel has done and what all other services have done. You can't just have one system and do it all because there are different kinds of threats. So what I'd like to talk about now is Israel's response to that called, anybody ever heard Iron Beam? Say again? Yeah. Iron Beam, now we're talking about not explosives, okay? And we'll get into that. So what I'm proposing they need, and everybody needs, is a integrated air defense system. So you have Iron Dome, Iron Beam, which is a laser weapon, and I'll describe it in a minute, and maybe something else, which I'll show you after. The equivalent of the Navy's CWIS, close-in weapon system, which is phalanx, 20 millimeter depleted uranium shells, 4,000 rounds a minute, okay? And the Army has a land-based version of that, which was used in Afghanistan for the first time. And it turns out the Army used it in combat before the Navy, and then it was in the Navy, on the Navy ships for 40 or 50 years. Okay.
Is that what the Helios is getting mounted to replace the CWIS?
I will answer that, Davey. This just shows you what the USS Carney used. This is a simulation, by the way. I'll show you a picture of what the USS Carney used against the Houthi in the Red Sea. So all those missiles they hit through, or rockets. think you get the idea. So I cut it a little short. So let's get into iron beam, because that would be part of it. So we're talking about a laser-based system. Now, in 2021 presentation, it was in like the third iteration, okay? And they talked about iron beam, which I have a short video on that explains it very well. And to now, things that Iron Dome doesn't want to deal with because it has higher priorities, and the numbers are great enough so that some get through, then you work with the laser weapon to take out more, because it augments Iron Dome. And here's the thing, you talk about it, you can fire a beam, okay, for 5 seconds, okay, and destroy something. That's what the nominal thing that I'm sure it's really classified. And then it charges for 5 seconds, and then you can keep firing. And if you have multiple of these, you can start to take out numerous other threats. It's a shorter range, and you'll see in the video that this Israeli scientist who points out some of the, I don't want to say weaknesses, but some of the characteristics of this, that the fact that it recharges. But the advantage is you don't run out of missiles, you don't have to reload, you recharge. And Israel has worked with U.S. companies like Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman on developing this. Okay, what we're going to do now is, this is the iron beam.
This laser weapon can strike targets such as drones, rockets, and mortars, and can do so for a fraction of the price of other missile defense systems. The Iron Beam is an experimental project built by Israel. It could be used in conjunction with the Iron Dome, which launches rockets and is considered one of the most advanced air defense systems in the world.
מערכת הלייזר של רפאל הוא שובר שוויון אסטרטגי למדינת ישראל וגם בעולם.
Israel says the Iron Beam could enhance its protection against threats from Iran's allies in Lebanon and Gaza. But some defense experts say the technology has several weaknesses, including its short range. To perfect the system, Israel is in talks with the U.S. about cooperating on the technology. Here's how the laser beam system works and why some military analysts say American expertise could enhance it. The Iron Beam is composed of a laser gun located on this swiveling unit, a surveillance system that tracks incoming threats, and a command center where operators give directions. Israeli officials say the laser gun fires a beam that uses 100 kilowatts of power. That's around 100 times the typical electrical power that a household in the U.S. uses. Here's what it looks like in action. This footage from the Israeli Defense Ministry shows the laser striking down a rocket. Israel's goal is to integrate this weapon into its arsenal and also save some money. That's according to military analysts who say the laser would allow the country's army to reduce its reliance on the more expensive Iron Dome. One interceptor missile fired from the Iron Dome can cost $50,000 or more. In contrast, Israel's departing Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said the Iron Beam could do the same thing for as little as $2.
There are two differences now. One, the cost per kill, the recovery is low, and the second is that there is no ammunition. Save all this claim of production and logistics.
That's Uzi Rubin, a defense engineer and military analyst. Years ago, he developed earlier defense systems for Israel. He says the Iron Beam, despite all its advantages, has a lot of issues to overcome.
This is not a simple one, as it sounds. It isn't. One is a short range, the other is the sensitivity to weather, and the third is the longevity.
Let's start with the weather. The issue is that the system's sensors can be hampered in rainy and cloudy conditions. That means the Iron Beam may not be operational in Israel in colder months such as November and December, according to Rubin. If the weather prevents it from working, Israel's defense ministry says the Iron Dome could kick in. Another vulnerability is said to be the range. The beam loses power as it travels through the air, making its impact on the target less powerful. It's known as the bloom effect.
When it hits the air, it starts blooming. The beam widens up. After a while, it's so diluted it doesn't have an effect.
And then there's the speed at which it can take down objects. The period of dwell time before the laser damages its target makes it slower than the Iron Dome.
When you push the button, your beam touches the rocket at the speed of light. But then it has to keep pumping energy into the rocket until it melts or explodes something.
That process could take a few seconds and hamper its ability to combat multiple incoming rockets, Rubin says. On its own, the system could struggle to counter strikes similar to those seen in this video footage, where rockets are fired from a position in Gaza City towards Israel in May of 2021. Still, Israeli officials said the Iron Beam could be deployed early next year. Israel's project comes amid a global wave of interest in laser-powered weapons. Countries such as the US, Russia, and China all claim to work on technology, which some defense experts say could be a key component in future warfare. The Pentagon is working with major defense contractors and testing advanced systems based on similar technology to Israel. And some US tools are estimated to be capable of firing a 300 kilowatt laser, which is more powerful than the Iron Beams. The more kilowatts of power the system has, the farther the laser can strike targets, although laser makers in the US and Israel told WSJ that the range of laser weapons can vary widely, also depending on the type of target. The Iron Beam is designed to detect small targets up to 12.4 miles away, according to Israel. Analyst Uzi Rubin estimated that American lasers could strike twice as far as Israel's. That's still much lower than the Iron Dome, which can hit rockets at a distance of up to 43 miles.
The range is limited. It's more limited than the range of interceptor weapons, even a short-range interceptor weapon.
Because of all those limitations, security analysts say Israel is seeking support from the U.S. to enhance the weapon. President Biden would showcase the Iron Beam during a state visit to Israel and signaled U.S. support for the tool.
We have reaffirmed the unshakable commitment of the United States to Israel's security, including partnering with Israel on the most cutting-edge defense systems in the world, including the U.S. support for the Iron Dome and Israel's new laser-enabled system called the Iron Beam.
Congress is moving ahead with plans to send Israel another $1 billion to the Iron Dome, which the U.S. Army has also been testing in some military bases. Now, any new cooperation on the Iron Beam could accelerate the process of making laser weapons a reality on the battlefield.
Okay, despite the negativism of that guy, if you're going to have a... not going to use Iron Beam as a standalone system, you're going to integrate it with Iron Dome and maybe, well, there are some other things like I'll show you, like land-based phalanx kinds of things, and that's what you need to really deal with the various threats that you have there. So, David, you asked a question, okay, and now I think I'll answer it. If you remember, now we're going to get into beyond Gaza, certainly we're getting into the threat. I just wanted to quickly talk about the Houthi threat. Everybody know the Houthis and where they are in Yemen and everything else? And the problem there is right at the strait between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, right? Yeah, they're launching drones and firing rockets, short-range rockets at shipping and causing a problem. And then for the first time in combat history, the Navy used phalanx on the USS Carney to shoot down the drones that were coming, okay? But now, what the Navy has, sorry, this is the test firing on the USS Preble of the Helios system that Davey talked about. It's a 60 kilowatt laser weapon, just like Iron Dome. And if you Google it online, you'll see a couple of videos. And for the first time, we saw an actual test on a U.S. Navy ship to deal with drones and other kinds of threats, small rockets, etc. The Navy plan is to put the Helios system on 3 or 4 more destroyers and field them this year. Okay. The problem with Iron Beam was that in the first slide I showed, it said that it was due to be fielded in 2023. The problem is it has not, Iron Beam has not been fielded yet. They switched it to sometime in 2025. So again, it's one thing to show, demonstrate technology. I'm sure all of you realize that. And another thing, especially to have something in the field, whether it's commercial or military, working and sales of quite a few of them. Now I want to get into the further threat and how the Israelis have dealt with that. Hezbollah, you know, if you remember, after October 7th, Hezbollah joined with Hamas to fire missiles into Israel. And Israel had to now deal with that with Lebanon and Hezbollah. And this is one of the threats that they had. Now we're talking more than rockets. This is a cruise missile in the attic of a home in Beirut, okay, in the attic. And what they had commandos go in, Israelis, and they found that they had to press a button and the roof opens, okay, and they launched the missiles. You can see the brick back there to handle the exhaust. And now we're talking at a whole other level of threat, because you're going to see also the Iranians are coming in to this too. So again, this was just for the general public, the difference between a rocket and now a ballistic missile. Any missile that can be controlled. If you have something like a Sidewinder on an airplane, or even now they have ground versions of them, they're heat-seeking missiles, but they are controlled, okay, by the sensors. They're not just fired intermittently. Okay, but a ballistic missile is one that's launched, and this is going on today now, and it's going on in the Ukraine today, because the Russians will launch, like they did earlier this week, 3 ballistic missiles and 111 drones, all at once, in this latest attack on the Ukraine. And of course, they're killing civilians. But the key point here is that these ballistic missiles go into space, okay? And then when they do re-entry, they are moving so fast, you have to have an extremely capable air defense system to deal with those speeds. And what you're trying to do is detect things and engage them close to apogee when they haven't started speeding up. Okay. Now, I found very interesting. Now, this is in Israel, okay, unique situation. Now you know that there's a ballistic threat. There's rockets being made, especially a lot of things in Syria. So let me just show you where are we here, how they dealt with this, one way anyway.
Israeli commandos carried out a secret raid in Syria this week, targeting an Iranian-linked weapons facility in the Masyaf region. The operation, utilizing airstrikes and a rare ground infiltration, marks one of Israel's most extensive missions in years. After airstrikes devastated the site, Israeli special forces repelled from helicopters to raid the facility, capturing several Iranian officers. The site, linked to chemical weapons production, was also rigged with explosives and destroyed. With dozens injured and at least 18 killed, the raid marks a significant escalation in Israel's efforts to counter Iran's influence in Syria. As tensions rise in the region, this may have far-reaching consequences for Israel, Syria, and Iran.
So, one of the ways to do it is, like we said, get them before they launch, okay? So that attack destroyed a warehouse and a facility where they were manufacturing missiles to put together more advanced missiles. The other thing is we have to consider the Israeli Air Force. Okay, they have, in Ukraine, they're dealing with certain cruise missiles by Ukrainian pilots flying the F-16s that the United States gave gave them, and taking out the cruise missiles, which fly lower but slower than ballistic missiles or anything like that. I found it amazing that I didn't know that Israel had over 300 F-16s. That's only the United States has more. And somebody was telling me that here in New Jersey, down in Atlantic City, the Air Guard there that has F-16s, the oldest F-16s in the U.S. Air Force inventory, even though it's the Guard. And in 2 years, I think they're going to be obsolete, and there's no plan to replace them. So they don't know what's going to happen with that Guard unit. Boy. Okay, we also, what we're doing is they have 66 F-15s which carry the bunker buster bombs. So if they threw in, again, here's where intelligence comes in. If they find out that there's a manufacturing facility underground in tunnels to do certain things, and they used it certainly in the Gaza Strip, you drop these bunker busters which will go through to the basement and blow the whole building up. And they're doing the same thing, selective bombing of buildings in Beirut area. And now, they have F-35s, okay? Now the thing about that, we're going to hear about this later because the Iranians know that Israel has F-35s at a certain base, which in the last attack that they had, attacked that base plus other things. I'll quickly get into that. The advantage of the F-35 is you can base it in a particular base, but you can have them take off and land in a parking lot somewhere, okay, and move them around so you can't figure out where they are, and then they can attack from there. Okay, then in Lebanon to deal with Hamas, there was, in 2006, there was a UN resolution, I think it was called 1702. Anybody familiar with that? What that said was south of, there's a line down here somewhere. Well, anyway, all the red circles are, okay, there's a river right around here, just above the Israeli border, okay, where Hezbollah had headquarters and a lot of troops, and Israel attacked them. And the UN resolution said, okay, Israel, your troops will leave, Hezbollah, your troops will leave there, we're going to have the equivalent of a DMZ there. Okay, no troops there, and the Lebanon army was going to be patrolling that area. Well, it turns out that was good for a year and a half, and then Hezbollah moved back in, and then we have the situation we have now. Okay, drones and missiles. This is Iran, okay? If you look on the left there, that's the infamous drone that the Iranians have sold to the Russians, and they fired at Ukrainian targets. Now, the thing about them is they're internally controlled and they're not controlled by an operator. They have inertial navigational systems like a lot of what we have. So you fire them, and they are targeted to hit something at a certain area. And they're relatively slow and they're relatively low. It makes it difficult for aircraft like F-16s to be cued to attack them and take them out. And if you look at the other missiles, now you're talking about ballistic missiles, okay? And you look at the ranges that are fired from Iran. And as I'll mention later and show you how Israel dealt with them and how the Ukrainians have to deal with them, you want to get them before they enter the atmosphere again. So what happened was, remember there was a tit for tat attack between Israel and Iran, and what happened was the last thing that was done was Well, Iran has an answer. Iran fired ballistic missiles from Iran into Israel for the first time. Now they had explosions throughout Israel from Iran. And then what Israel ended up doing, waiting for Iran to respond, is took out all, no, I don't know, they say all, a substantial amount of air defense system around their nuclear plants and some of their cities. So I don't know what the extent of the Iranian air defense systems are at the moment. Come on, where are you? Okay. So this is the result of the second Iranian attack on Israel soil with ballistic missiles.
What we've been able to confirm about the Iranian missile attacks on Israel, the full extent of damage not yet clear. Our correspondents in Iran and Israel are not being allowed access to some locations. But the BBC Verify team has been looking at what we do know about the strikes. Nawala Magafi has the details.
Social media was inundated with videos showing a barrage of missiles launched from Iran towards Israel, and our team has been working through the night to verify the locations. So let me take you through what we found. These are missiles launching from Shiraz in Iran. US intelligence had warned the attack was incoming. Iran said its targets included Israeli air bases and the Mossad headquarters. We've been able to verify strikes in the vicinity of 3 key locations: Nevatim Air Base, Tel Nof Air Base, and what's reported to be the Mossad headquarters. This video is from Nevatim. The lights piercing through the night sky are missiles heading towards the airbase. In just one video, we can count at least 9 missiles clearly hitting the ground. Pro-Hezbollah media say this airbase was used in the killing of Hassan Nasrallah. The Nevatim airbase is believed to house F-35 fighters, but most were presumed to be airborne. The second location we've looked at is the Tel Nof airbase. In this video, you can see a crater, not at the airbase itself, but at a school a few miles away. We matched the school to recent social media photos, plus the size and the shape of the surrounding area to satellite imagery. We also verified videos of missiles hitting northern Tel Aviv. A short distance from what's reported to be Israeli intelligence headquarters. This video was taken from the balcony of a tower block. Then we matched it to this video. Here you can see the crater of that attack. We've also spoken with a number of experts about Iran's strategy. US officials say Iran launched about 180 ballistic missiles, which are hard to intercept because of their high speed. Fabian Hint from the International Institute for Strategic Studies told us that the use of ballistic missiles in the attack indicates a deliberate strategy to minimize the warning and response time available to Israeli defenses. The IDF have said that the missiles did hit some locations in Israel, but that in coordination with the US-led defense coalition, the majority were intercepted.
Okay, we're in the home stretch here, so I want to describe what you're talking about there and the association with the US. Okay, we mentioned the, let's see back here, if you see some of the targets here, down here, Nevatim was one air base, here's the other one, okay, in Tel Aviv. So in Nevatim, this is where the F-35s were. So, you know, the Iranians have their own intelligence, and they wanted to take out the F-35s, and they hit the base, okay, with ballistic missiles. It turns out, fortunately, for the Israelis, the F-35s were not there. They were smart enough. She said they were probably in the air, some of them, but they moved them. They moved them to other locations that were unknown. But the point being, now all of a sudden, for the first time in their history, Israel has been struck by missiles from another country. And this is what one of them looks like. That, you know, they don't all come apart, even when they're hit by Iron Domes or Patriots or whatever, and we'll get into that. And you can see relative to the people, these things are huge. And that's why they have such a long range. And when they blow up, they blow up. Okay, so here's the thing, and here's what the Golden Dome people must realize. Israel is a small country, but they have a layered air defense, integrated air defense system. So you see where Iron Dome is, and if you look at the smallest little circle at the bottom, the 0 to 4, that could be something like an iron beam or something similar. So Iron Dome gets you a certain range. Then you have what they call David Sling, and I'll show you that in a second, which is very similar in range and capabilities to Patriot. But Israel also has, again, working in conjunction with U.S. companies, the Arrows system, okay, Arrow 2 and Arrow 3. And now you can see the ranges of these things. And the arrows are what's taking out the long-range ballistic missiles, and the David Sling and the Patriot, the medium-range ballistic missiles. These are, again, the ranges and the altitudes that they cover. Okay, and it shows you where Iron Dome is compared to some of the other things. Okay, very, very short range. And against the kinds of threats that were originally had with Hamas and Hezbollah, Iron Dome was fine. But as soon as Iran gets in, and we have the same thing in the Ukraine, with Russia having the same kinds of missiles, that's why the Ukrainians don't have an Iron Dome. They need something more than that. So here's what a lot of them look like, okay? David Sling on the left, Patriot, and Arrow. You can see Arrow looks like a lot like the Russian S-400 air defense system. If you Google S-400, you'll see the same kind of canisters and tubes like that, very large, very long range. Now, David Sling is used mainly around certain buildings and hospitals and schools, and it's not very mobile, so they place them in certain areas just to protect high priority targets. So they asked for the U.S. for some help, and we also, in addition to the Patriot, gave them the Theater High Altitude Air Defense System, the THAAD. And the big deal about the THAAD, as you can see, is that it is mobile, and very, very mobile, more mobile than the Patriot, because they're used and can be moved any place that you need them. Okay, just wanted to mention some other things for short range that's used that we gave to the Ukrainians. Okay, developed in conjunction with the Norwegians, that's what the N stands for in the NASAMS. And the interesting thing about this, again, remember originally Iron Dome missiles cost $50,000. Now they're up to $100,000. What NASAMS uses, if you look at that, anybody in the missile on the right, anybody in the Air Force would recognize it as a Sidewinder missile. And its sensor is heat-seeking, okay? And like all the other air defense systems, even Iron Beam would, okay, you have to have some sort of radar to cue, okay, and track the threat, just like the SCR-584. That's what they have. And then associated with the launcher, they have their own radar system as the threat comes in closer. You fire these missiles, which are pointed towards the heat source or the target, and then the sensor on board, and they're very, very capable, takes out the threat. And these, now you're talking about, since they've been in the inventory a long time, and there's a lot of sunk costs, and you're talking about $15,000 to $20,000 a missile instead of $100,000. So now you can afford to fire them on other targets that are, you know, maybe not as expensive, but worth firing a missile out. These are not used in Israel, by the way. They have a similar system that they're getting ready to field. Okay. Questions? Anybody?
Q&A, guys, come on.
So I got to make sure all my batteries are working for the pointer, and selector the next time. Sorry about that. But that's the status. If I wanted to put on there my version, anytime you want me to come back, I'd love to. The next version of this, the title is going to be, attention, it's Iron Drone, not Iron Dome. And I'll just leave you with that. John.
I'm still not clear. What's the plan for the United States? I mean, how many layers are we going to need to cover like the continental U.S.?
That's the question of the hour, because here's the thing, think about it. We have certain protection on the coasts, okay? We do our testing, and there was the radar group here at Camp Evans was part of it, because the Army had anybody heard of Kwajalein in the South Pacific? Okay, we have a radar base there and an interceptor base, and we launch from Vandenberg ballistic missiles that are engaged by the missiles coming out of Kwajalein with that radar. And it's, you know, how well do things work? It seems like if you read the newspaper, especially the New York Times, our shit doesn't work and the Russians can't do anything wrong. That kind of thing. But so you have to take things with a grain of salt. And what I didn't tell you about THAAD, the big deal about THAAD is, and think about this, what the technology it must take. All the other systems have that proximity fuse I talked about, which the US developed in World War II. The THAAD is a kinetic killer. I mean, it hits the target to take it out. So, but they worry about false target. Yes, sir.
I kind of have a question. We have all this technology and all this stuff is pretty interesting, but isn't there a better way to maybe solve some of these world problems and blowing each other up all the time?
Yes, but that's not my area of expertise, but absolutely, absolutely.
So you talk about Iron Dome, you showed one radar. Is that just a phase array? We have one unit or a whole?
That's a great question, and thank you for bringing it up. Yes, is the short answer. Patriot, same thing. The Iron Dome radar is the ELTA radar system, okay? They're both planar phase arrays, but there are variations for in the Patriot and in the ELTA radar for Iron Dome, because you expand the radar, you expand the number of elements in the flat planar array, and now you have a radar for David Sling, and you expand it even further, and you have the same radar, a variant for the Arrow system, because it all depends on the power and the range for detection and engagement. So it's a variant of the same radar, and Patriot works the same thing they had. Anyway, they had, it was the MPQ 53/65, which is the upgrade for Patriot to now give it longer range, because when you put the missiles in this slot, there's different kinds of missiles, just like in HIMARS, in the Patriot, depending on how far away the threat is.
Are
Yes.
there any airborne laser-based systems being developed?
When I was at Kirtland Air Force Base,
You can't answer the question.
I'm gonna, yeah, it said here, I worked at what was called the the Air Force Weapons Laboratory. It was changed, name was changed for the U.S. Air Force Phillips Laboratory, which was the beginning of laser development, airborne laser development in the Air Force. And they had a 747, okay, with a chemical radar from TRW. For 20 years they worked on that sucker, okay? And it turned out, you know, a 747, the whole idea was to take out ballistic missiles, okay, nukes. But to get the 747 in the right spot for a threat launch was really tough, and the power needed for that radar was, if everybody remember, Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI.
That was part of Reagan's Star Wars.
Yeah, does anybody, what was the initial concept of SDI? No. It was a launch, and this is, we talk about Golden Dome. Ideally, the equivalent of Golden Dome was the initial SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative approach. What happened was, anybody know who Edward Teller is?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay? He established Livermore Laboratory, okay, in California, and he had this, his right-hand man, this brilliant young physicist, and they went into Reagan's office and said, have we got something for you? Okay? And what it was, the scenario was the following. Russia, or the Soviet Union at the time, launches all these nukes at the United States. Now, you can't defend against those, Golden Dome. So what do? We launch ours, is what we would do in a retaliatory strike, and that's what's keeping us, that threat is keeping us from doing. So Edward Teller walks in and says, as soon as they launch this stuff and they get up in space, we have this, we're going to develop this special weapons for you. And what it will do is, it's an X-ray weapon that we're going to detonate in space, and then EMP and everything else is going to wipe out the entire Soviet attacking missile fleet, and we won't have to launch a retaliatory attack, and we'll have this protective umbrella over the entire United States. Well, they oversold it. They oversold it. Reagan said, yes! Make it so, now, immediately, all the money you want. And they didn't know what to do, because now they had to deliver. And guess what? That's not the way the Soviets would operate. Again, it's assuming like the airborne laser, okay, you're right there, everything is launched at once. They never do that. And you're going to take them all out at once, and they have nothing left to fire. And that's deteriorated into something called brilliant pebbles, which is what Matt was talking about, all these little things with lasers on them in the air that fire and kill the individual missiles, and finally, nothing, it was done.
How many trillions?
Bob?
You mentioned the Sea Whiz, I've seen it in operation, that's pretty close in. I would say within visual range. How does that figure in? Well, you're talking long range, 50, 100, 500,000 miles.
Right, well, what happens is, in that last slide, which I showed you, the layer, there's a very short layer of everything that gets through iron, say iron dome, iron beam, anything else you have. In that simulation, you didn't see them all, but you assume you have multiple CWIS, or multiple phalanx around certain areas that you want to defend, and it will take out those last bits very close, and that's why you fire all that 20 millimeter ammunition at them to take them out. But there are other ways of doing that too. There are more advanced phalanx equivalents now. In the European, I don't know if it's the Germans or the Dutch or the Swiss, Oerlikon, fire a munition, a 32 millimeter munition that has a sensor in it, and it explodes when it gets close, and it has it's better than a proximity fuse because it shapes this mushroom-like charge that goes out and takes out whatever the threat is, when you fire it. So the 20 millimeter shells don't have their own sensor in it. But this does. Yes, John?
There was a word on one of the slides, you may have touched upon this briefly. How effective are all these things against the hypersonic stuff? Is that stuff just too fast for this stuff? Or?
Yeah, they're working on, well, everybody's working on hypersonic. So I think the answer is, at this moment, John, is they fire theirs, we'll fire ours. You know what I mean? The speeds are, I don't know how you deal with them. Yeah, and I don't think we have an answer.
John, in practice, I mean, we saw the Israeli defenses. It looks like the way to overcome it is to defeat it by sheer volume of things coming in. At any point during these conflicts, has that happened? Has that system been overwhelmed enough to cause damage?
Well, they're not telling us. There's a good chance there is, because we have to believe them on the numbers on how many got through. They'll say something like, well, I know in the Ukraine they're saying, okay, the Russians launched, well, let's go say 200 and 10 got through. They said with the second Iranian attack that showed the first time they're hitting Israel with missiles, they said, the Israeli command said that they took out almost all of them. But that news report showed just on Nebaty, the airbase, 9 missiles landing and exploding. So, yeah, it's the numbers game, definitely.
So somebody just mentioned how fast these things go. But when you think about it, all of these defenses have to operate without human intervention. You have to turn them on, so if at any time during the day or night the enemy shoots a missile, it has to automatically knock it down. Now, doesn't that leave a risk to people who are not at war, like an airplane flying by or whatever?
I'm agreeing with you on that. The thing about the hypersonic missiles, they don't do this. They're for like very fast cruise missiles. You know what I mean? Yeah, cruise missiles are relatively slow. These things are very fast. You have to catch up. But you're right. The numbers game always wins.
Maybe off topic, but GPS has been getting a lot of publicity about being able to jam it and do all that. Is that still a factor in any of this technology?
I belong to the AOC, Garden State chapter, and one of our board members is, when he was a contractor at Fort Monmouth. Now, I retired from Fort Monmouth in 2002, okay? And for 10 years before that, Mario and his company were working on anti-jam of GPS in the Army. So, you know, there's a lot of talk about jamming, and certainly for the commercial stuff, it's going to be done. But the services have had anti-jam research, development, and implementation of equipment, as far as I know, for a long time.
Because I know they turned off the selective availability years ago because they felt the private
That too, yes.
used it, and we had to preserve the accuracy for military.
Yes.
And they went out the window.
And as I mentioned, the thing you have to worry about now is a lot of these things use inertial techniques, and maybe they reach a point where they don't get an update from GPS, but they'll still be pretty accurate in the final end game. You guys have been a wonderful audience. I hope I didn't take up too much time. Thank you. I got to check and see what batteries work. Boy, this is terrible.
Listen,
I'm sorry, turn it off.
Mr. Falk, how about another round of applause, please?
Thank you.
This is the continuation of our guest speaker series. Just to let you know, maybe John also. Okay, so we will be having more guest speakers, and hopefully as engaging as John has been this evening, too. John?
John, one last question. Sure. When are you going to put the props on the plane?
And I didn't ask you to ask me that question, did I? I just showed, who did I show? I showed Dave Beach and Rob. Rob's still here. Rob Forte. What happens is, just so you know, there's Rob, okay? The Army gave us the RC-12. It's a guardrail, airborne SIGINT plane. The last version of it, latest version, was still flying around the Ukraine region. And just to let you know, the latest version of that has 75 antennas on it. Intercepts everything. So everything the Russians were emitting, including cell phones and everything else, that was sucking it up, sending it down to a ground station Humvee, which related to the second Humvee, sent it up the military satellite towards Stewart, Georgia. The analysts and the translators put together the presidential daily brief, gave it to Biden, and if you may not remember this, but prior to the invasion, everybody in Europe said, oh, Putin said we're not going to invade, we're not going to invade, we're not going to invade. And you could hear Biden just say, they're invading. Because he knew they had all those estimates from the NATO planes, and especially from the guardrail, on troop movements, what they were doing in Belarus and everything else, and all the generals that were up close to the line. That's why they all got killed by the Ukrainians, because they were using their cell phones. That plane was an earlier version. It served in Korea at DMZ zone. And we got, they took the engines out because they're retiring all these planes and they're going to replace them with, you heard it first here, Hades. Okay. The Army is going to have a jet aircraft. And I think, I'm not sure, there's supposed to be a Bombardier 6500 made in Canada. I don't know what's going to happen with that. Because they're worried about Xi and the Chinese in the Pacific, and you need to have longer legs on your aircraft. So we're refurbishing that. They kept the engines, so we needed brackets to be made. And the Army gave us 30 pages of drawings. And we went to a contractor right outside Fort Dix in Browns Mills, and he looked at the drawings, and he's serviced the Army flight activity on the Joint Base. He says, this doesn't look right. And they had another RC-12 down there, and he just took a look at it, and he realized the drawings were all wrong. And he came up here and measured, okay, exactly.
Get some brackets from Home Depot or something?
No. John, I'll show you on my phone what it looks like. And they came by they built the first one for a fit test, and they came by this week, and they did a great job. So in 2 weeks, we should have the props mounted.
Yes.
All right, that was a long answer, I know.
That'll work.
Yeah. And we got spinners to go on the front of them, and then the next thing is to repaint it and get some fake antennas to replace the ones that were taken off by the Army.
I got some code hackers, is that going to work?
Yeah.
All right, folks, we have one item to be auctioned off that JD Auction Services will partake with right now. It'll be just a D of JD Auction Services. So it's a very nice Philco donated to us by John Stoll. So anyway, again, we thank John so much for his engaging, unbelievable. We didn't expect this at all, John, believe me.
Good.
Yeah, everybody was riveted, that's for sure.
No, 60. Do we know anything about it?